You're listening to The Flickcast, a podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my esteemed and wonderful, talented, and very attractive co-host, Joe Dilworth. Hey, Joe.
Well, geez, I don't know if I can live up to that. Holy cow.
You don't have to, man. It is what it is, and that's how you are, and I don't mind telling people.
I guess I'm just a voice, so people just have to take it on faith that all those other things are true.
You are not just a voice. You're not a robot.
I am not a number. I am a man.
I'm a free man. Yeah, well, that was a great show, man. The Prisoner. I like that show a lot.
That was so good.
We don't talk about that show very much, but I really enjoyed it. I rewatched it again recently, somewhat recently, I guess, and it's still good. It's still crazy, and it would not hurt to be high when you're watching it. I'm just saying.
That's probably true.
It's probably true for a lot of shows, really, but this one in particular, it does get a little weird. Yeah. It's very 60s, very psychedelic. But Patrick McGoohan is awesome in the show. If you never watched The Prisoner, it's definitely worth watching.
And if you're up, if you're up for completely ambiguous and weird endings, the show has got you covered.
Definitely, yeah. Don't watch the terrible reboot with Caviezel. That thing was a piece of shit.
That thing was weird.
Yeah, it was a piece of crap. But I do like Ian McKellen, and I used to like Caviezel, but I don't really care for him as much now. But it was just
he's kind of a
he's kind of exactly. So, but yeah, the original is amazing. So anyway, I'm not sure how we got on The Prisoner. Oh, you started it by saying I'm not a number. Yeah, so it's your fault.
Yes,
it's your fault for the.
However,
what?
Speaking of shows that like to play with your perceptions
yes.
and time and stuff, we should talk about Westworld.
We will. In fact, that's one thing we're going to get to on this show, on this episode of the Flickcast. We'll talk about a little bit of the Westworld, and then a little bit of the For All Mankind finale, and then maybe some Sandman. Although I'm very sleepy already. No, I'm kidding. Oh, Sandman.
I sounded more like a bear.
It did a little bit, yeah, or a predator. Although I can't do the predator sound, so
I can't. I wish I could, because that would be fun, just to randomly do that and watch people.
I gotta know. I gotta think. There's an app that can do sound effects, or you could just, record some of the audio and make a sound effect, probably for your phone if you want.
Yeah.
Not that I'm advocating stealing sound effects from anybody, but you could probably do that.
No,
if it's for personal use only.
Yes, as long as you're not selling it.
Yeah, as long as you're not selling. Yeah, it's for personal use. If it's for fun and games to scare your dog or something, I don't know.
My dog doesn't need that. He's already scared.
Yeah, mine too. It's also like I don't understand that. It's like people with laser pointers and cats, and my dog will chase a laser pointer too, but I don't do that. It seems like kind of a dick thing to do. So anyway,
it does.
Anyway, all right. So do you want to talk about Westworld for a second, because it's really good this year, I think, and let's jump into that. I was kind of like not into it that much. I don't know. I kind of lost its way, I thought, last year, maybe a little bit, but then this season has been terrific. Of course, Tessa Thompson is in the show, which helps.
Well, yeah,
and everybody else too. Jeffrey Wright and everybody, they're all really good. Evan Mitchell Wood, everybody's and the return of a surprise character too, which I thought was interesting.
I know, that was kind of
nice. They brought him back.
Yes.
We won't spoil it for you, but yeah, this is just such a weird vibe on this season, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's just Ed Harris is terrific as a bad guy, and it's kind of coming full circle in a way. But yeah, I seriously thought, as we talked about before we recorded the show in our pre-show, that this last week was the season finale, because a lot of shit went down. But then apparently there's one more episode.
Right.
So who knew?
There is. By the time this airs, that episode will have aired. But yeah it is.
Yeah.
There is the season finale. And I get where you're coming from, because the penultimate episode certainly felt like a lot of endings for a lot of characters. So as I speculated, I wouldn't be surprised if the fourth season finale afterwards, they announce, we're done with the show. I wouldn't put it past them to end the show and not tell people that it's going to end, just because they, like I said, they like to play with perception and time and things like that. So it sounds like they have an end game in mind, and maybe this is it coming up. Although I have to say, they've never followed up on that like little stinger at the end of season 2 where William, the Man in Black, woke up in the whole was it the Forge, and it was obviously like many years in the future, and his daughter was there. Mm-hmm. They've now not followed up. We haven't gotten back to that yet. So I would say in the season finale, if we circle back to that, to me, that's like, okay, we're hitting the end now. So
yeah, it's definitely a show I feel like that kind of lost its way a little bit, but they have a lot of threads out there that haven't really been picked up. That's one of them, like you said. But yeah, the time jumping around I thought was pretty interesting this season. It didn't. I don't know what happened, but it seems like they got new writers, or maybe just like thought of some new storylines. But I really have been enjoying it a lot. The twists were cool, and I didn't see some of them coming. But yeah, this last episode was, like you said, pretty final for some people. Although, is it really? I mean, I guess in a show where everyone's a host, probably. I don't know. I don't really have a prediction. I don't really have a prediction for the end, but you're right. It could be just that everyone's been existing in a simulation this whole time, which is why I think we talked about it a tiny bit a week or two ago, maybe on a previous episode. And I was talking about how it's a lot like The Matrix to me. It feels like this season is a lot like The Matrix. So,
well, they have their utopia or whatever.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
Computers where everyone supposedly is. I mean, Bernard even mentions that Maeve and Dolores and everybody's in there.
Yeah, exactly.
What
is real, right? Have you ever questioned the nature of reality? That's the basic question of the entire show, and the answer is they should be questioning the nature of every reality they're in, because none of it's real, right? I think that's the point.
Yes.
Nothing is real, and they're all just a part of a simulation, and they always have been. And that's the end. They're gonna what's going to happen is all this shit's going to happen, and then I guess I'm going to make a prediction, and then it's going to just go to black, and then there'll be it'll just come back up, and Anthony Hopkins will be sitting there. He's like, pulled the plug out. He's like, I'm done with this shit, and he's just going to walk away.
Yeah, he's like, well, that was interesting.
That was interesting.
Yeah. It'll be
take off his VR headset or get out of a big tank of shit, and he's like, I don't like that. That didn't work for me.
No, it'll go to black, and then it'll come back up on Arnold and Ford sitting there, and they'll kind of look at each other, and they're like, "Nah, maybe we shouldn't do that. That could get out of we can see how that could get out of control."
Yeah.
And then that's it. Yeah. They just no, we're not going to do that.
Let's not do that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's the funny thing. It's about a little bit of Terminator in there too, right? It's like you can't go back in time to kill the father of or the mother of your whatever, otherwise you'll never exist. So it's a whole thing. It's like it's a chicken and the egg conundrum. So it's like if they never created the Matrix, did it ever exist? And so that's something that I think could happen. They could easily just sort of. I don't think they will maybe make a joke of the end, but you could do something. There's going to be some kind of twist. Or dragons will come and kill everybody. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. No, there will. I mean, it's the show that thrives on perception and twists. Yeah. And so there will be some ending.
I'm just sort of angry we haven't seen Medieval World or the Samurai Shogun World, or any of those other worlds.
We did see them. We did see Shogun World in the second season.
A little bit.
Yeah,
but not enough. So. Not enough for me. They should have done. I know TV is expensive, so they have to have that same set they can keep using. But it's just, I don't know. I would have maybe explored the hosts more. But the idea of the hosts wanting to become, ascend from their meager whatever. I think that's the whole idea. I mean, it's really good, especially this season. It really hits the sci-fi buttons. You know what I mean? It's like, these are the tenets of a sci-fi show. Striving for, what does it mean to be human, but what does it mean to transcend that? And kind of, it's just, it's very metaphysical too, man. And again, this is probably another show that's probably good to be high when you're watching. So
exactly. But it definitely felt like the end for certain characters, because whenever the hosts are shot in the head, it destroys their pearl, and that's it for them, unless they're backed up somewhere. But considering... I find it interesting that Maeve and Heloris or Dale or whatever she is, it's Dolores in Charlotte Hale's body.
Yeah.
It was just like a quick cursory thing. But they focused on Bernard. So that to me feels like, okay, so maybe Bernard is actually done, because he had the dramatic prolonged death that characters that are actually leaving a show usually have. However, right when the man in black was walked in the room, he was recording something on the tablet. He's like, reach into your left pocket, and then stopped and either transmitted it or whatever. So he's got an out, possibly.
Well, is that a message? Is that a message to himself or a message to somebody?
I don't know. Yeah. Because they played with that early in the episode, where him and Maeve storming the thing was played multiple times. So, and they've talked to Hall all this year about how has gone through multiple scenarios trying to figure out. He's been Doctor Strange this year.
Yeah.
There's only one in which we live.
Right.
But he says that all of them end with him dying. But does he mean that? How does he mean that? It's
right, because if it ends with him dying, but he comes back to do it again, then he's not really dead, right? Well, that's the thing.
Right. So
that's what is the first episode of the show, man. Question your reality. So I'm questioning all of the things that are happening. I don't believe anything that's being shown.
Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality?
Exactly. I don't believe anything they're showing until I have like definitive sort of worked it out. But then again, the whole thing could just be, like we said, it could just be conjecture, or it could be just fantasy, or it could be just all existing in virtual reality, or whatever. So, and that's the thing I think that is I'm responding to more this season, especially, is like I'm still interested in the show. I kind of got my interest again because of them taking it in a kind of a different direction, or in the direction they always meant to go in. But yeah, it's been fun. We should revisit it when they have the finale and see what happened.
I think he did slip something to Stubbs though when he hugged him, and I think that's who the message is.
You mean the tongue, maybe, or no?
No, that's why he's like, look in your left pocket, because he, purposely was like, oh, I don't want to tell you, Stubbs, but yeah, you don't make this. But he did.
Right.
So,
well, Stubbs said,
I think he was just trying to.
I don't make it.
Yeah.
He never said he didn't make it.
That's true, and he's like,
because Stubbs,
I think he wanted him to believe that.
Yeah. The thing I like about Stubbs is that he's, aside from being the least attractive Hemsworth. I'm sorry. No, I know. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's gotta suck being Chris Hemsworth's brother. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be tough. If you go out to a party with your brothers and like, wow, all the women are talking to Chris, they're not talking to me. Anyway, but that's a problem for a different day, I guess. But I like his character more this season. He's kind of cynical, but kind of like practical. But he's like fed up with Bernard's bullshit. It's like, okay, what now?
Yes.
But yeah, he never said that I'm the one who got. He's just assumed he'd be the one who died, but really it was Bernard. Right. And I wonder if that was so he was more fatalistic, so he'd take more chances, maybe, or something. I don't know, but I'm sure there was a reason that Bernard did it. But I will miss Jeffrey Wright if he's not coming back. So.
I definitely will. I will say Bernard teamed up with anybody on the show is like during that time is my favorite team up. Like him and Stubbs was awesome, but him and Maeve was awesome.
Well, she's just killing it too. I mean, she's awesome. But I mean that's the thing. They're all really good, on the show. Tessa and Jeffrey Wright and everybody. Just they're all really excellent and. I always forget people. Evan Rachel Wood, I think, is although it seems to be shifting away from her a little bit to focus on some other people. And her whole
it's still focused on Dolores though, because Tessa Thompson's playing Dolores this year.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah.
So Dolores is still the main character, but just not necessarily Evan Rachel Wood.
But what is Dolores? Dolores is just a construct, right? At this point, so.
Right. But
I think the Red Queen or something in.
And Evan Rachel Wood's character is actually still Dolores too. So there's a good Dolores and a bad Dolores. Which one in the Black Lodge?
Exactly. So yeah, I kind of hope they do another season now if they can continue with. This
I know.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
We didn't mention.
We'll revisit this next week, of course, after the finale. So.
We didn't mention any of the other people that There's a lot of characters in this show, and all the actors are doing excellent work, I think.
Aaron Paul's doing a great job. So
yeah, Aaron. You know what? I got to be honest. Aaron Paul was never my favorite character on Breaking Bad. It's obviously Walter, but whatever. But Aaron Paul was okay. He was okay with what he had to do, and he grew into the part, obviously. But if you're next to Cranston, it's kind of hard to shine sometimes, So,
that's true.
Cranston is just super good, and
he's holding his own on this show, though.
He is now. Well, he's obviously he's matured and worked on his work, his craft, whatever you want to call it, and he's come a long way. I mean, I think a lot of that was probably being, on the set with Bryan Cranston every day. You got to learn from him, I would imagine, and from Giancarlo Esposito and from all those other people. It's like these are some high caliber dudes and ladies. And I can learn a lot from them. So he did, obviously. But I'm not saying he's not talented. It's just you can tell that he's put in the work, as it were. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, fun show.
Westworld series or season finale, we will discuss more next week.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about the Danny and the Jimmy problem, shall we?
Wow, that finale! I gotta say,
yeah, we're talking about For All Mankind. I don't know if everybody's watching the show as they should be, and we joke about how it's got some problems, but this episode there was a lot of stuff that happened, and some of it was very final. And I thought there was some fitting send-offs for one character in particular. But people do, as is sort of what happens on this show, people did meet their fate.
Yes. Spoilers, by the way.
If you haven't watched it.
Serious spoilers.
So. Serious.
Why
so serious?
Yes, exactly.
Has nothing to do with the show, but I don't think there's no Joker connection to this show at all. Anyway,
no.
And that was more of a Heath Ledger impression, folks. Anyway.
Yeah,
anyway. Yeah, they they did a lot of crazy stuff on this, and I've seen lots of different comments about how it's really hard to make Joel Kinnaman look bad, and you just can't the aging makeup on him. I feel like they got a different beard and hair guy girl this episode because the fake beard guy looked better somehow.
Yes,
a little bit.
Yes,
but Jimmy's hair is still ridiculous. But yeah, it's just. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about the whole idea of, I'm just going to say, the bombing thing sort of was like, really? A bombing? Okay. I guess because this is their version of 9/11, maybe? I don't know. But I'm sure that must have...
I guess. It was kind of like, we need to get rid of a couple characters, so we're going to do this,
well,
I guess.
It's sort of... I mean, if you follow along the progression of Jimmy's character in particular and his disillusion with whatever, and they both expressed their grief in different ways, and Jimmy, obviously expressed it, but then he had remorse and whatever.
Yeah.
And of the two brothers, obviously he's the good one. Or the less dumb one, I should say.
Yeah. Yes. Let's qualify that.
Yeah, so. They're both pretty stupid. Yeah. But and I saw an interview with some of the showrunners and the writers. They're talking about how they know there's been so much fan reaction to Danny and Jimmy, especially, and they're like, oh, their fans are passionately against them in many ways, and Ron Moore is like, well, passion is just passion. We like that. So they know that their characters are controversial. Yeah. I don't know, but
yeah.
I suppose there was no real... They didn't give Danny redemption, which I thought was interesting, because I was like, oh, he's going to fly the ship.
Yeah, I thought they were going to totally do that, and then he'll end up dying, but that's not what
they didn't give him redemption. They gave him isolation. They gave him banishment. He was banished.
Yeah.
Which is actually interesting, because what will happen to him when he's isolated like that? Will he change? And maybe he'll get redemption later, or maybe he'll just die later. But I was just, the idea that...
Whatever it happens, though, it'll be between seasons, though, because we jump ahead 10 years.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, they'll show what happened, I suppose.
Yeah.
But a good twist at the end. I thought that was interesting.
That was...
Which makes me wonder... the more I watch the show, I'm like, wow, there's some Americans tie-in. You ever watch that show, The Americans?
Yes.
Because Ren Schmidt played one of the KGB handlers on that show, which I thought was funny. Yeah. So it's like, oh, well, she ended up in Russia. That's interesting.
Well, she's in Russia, and her Russian boyfriend is in America. It was like, well, that's an interesting twist.
You feel like that there would be, because she has that whole conversation with Alita. She's like, well, we'll talk about it after. I mean, Alita didn't seem like she was going to do anything. And
no.
Was she going to get convicted? I mean, I guess there's really no scenario where she wouldn't get in trouble for that. So,
yeah, they obviously had I think the whole conversation with the Russian lady was like,
we will get you out.
We're going to extract you. And that when Margot gave that speech about how proud she was, and they all did this, and she's walking out, looking around, it's like, oh, that's when.
Yeah.
She's going to go get in a car now and leave.
Well, except she was playing the piano. That's the last time we saw her, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So she had to play one last song on the piano, but she could
before. Yeah.
But the real question is, she couldn't have known about the bombing, though, right?
No.
So then, how did that turn out to be cover for her to leave?
It was a happy accident.
Really? Was it a happy accident?
Yeah, I don't think that was set up by the Russians either. I don't think anybody knew about that.
Well, maybe they did.
Just like, oh well, here we go. There, Well, maybe we'll find out.
They'll find out that those guys were funded by some Russian splinter group or something.
Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I don't know, fake beardo guy is gonna. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it seems so on the nose and obvious that was what was gonna happen, and then it did happen, and then it's like, why is Karen out there like running around like an idiot? I don't know. It's just
yeah. As soon as they were like, hey, we need you to plant this in there, and we'll be able to get all their secrets. I'm like, oh. They're gonna blow something up.
Yeah.
that's not what they're after.
But then why did they even need him to go in there at all? Because their plan was to detonate that bomb in the parking lot, right? So what was his point? What was the point of him going in there?
I don't know.
Well, the point was that he would be seen by Karen, and then Karen would find out where he was, and then go outside, and then she would,
Well, yeah, of course.
Jimmy, this way, quick, run, and then she gets,
and then she can go full time on FBI. And oh wait, sorry.
What, is she on a different show? I don't even know.
Yeah, she's recurred on a couple different shows the last.
She works a lot, man.
Couple years, yeah, and I think they're really wanting her to be a main character.
I thought Chantal Van Santen is her name. I thought she was really good on this show. I thought that her arc was quite extensive. I mean, she was like an astronaut housewife at the beginning, right?
Yeah,
but then you meet her and you're like,
yeah.
oh well, she's tough. She's got some toughness about her, and she's got some shit going on, and then. And she gradually works her way up to the top, really, and just puts Dev in his place. Fuck you, Dev. This is how it's going to go.
Well, it blows our theory that the whole show is about Karen and Ed, and that they're safe. But
by the way, it could still be about Karen and Ed. I mean, Ed could still carry a torch. Although I feel like if they're going to keep jumping forward, they're eventually going to have to either kill off everybody, or they're going to have to like just be recast maybe, because even the young characters, you're not going to convince me that Kelly Baldwin is 50. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to age up that actress.
Right.
So it's like at some point either they have to stop doing it or they have to change some of the characters. Like that's the reason that Danny's being isolated, because they're going to recast him with another actor. And he's going to come out of the capsule being a totally different person. Oh, Danny, you've changed. He's like, I've been in this capsule for 10 years now.
He'll suddenly be a better actor. No, sorry.
Oh, come on.
Well, I mean, next season, that means Ed is like in his 70s, right? I'm just like,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't think they ever have to get rid of Kinnaman. I think Kinnaman can still be the main guy, but he's got to age. I mean, he's got to finally age. Yeah. It's hard to make him look older. But he's
maybe retire. There's no way you keep going into space,
right? Although people are going into space,
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, people live longer. It's the future. Maybe there's some kind of medical cure, like Danny said. You've been taking steroids, bro, and so.
And they're well ahead of us in medical and other technology.
You've been juicing up.
Show, so.
But yeah, the other problem is it's hard for me to believe that the president is going to be in her 50s or 60s too, because she still looks like 25 to me. So.
Right, exactly.
It's hard to age her, and it's hard to age Danielle. Danielle still looks young in every shot still.
Yes.
And she's supposed to be, 40s now? I don't believe it. So,
and even Alita is going to be getting... well, they've recasted her because they had a younger actress playing her in the first season. And they
but she can still hang around for 10 more years, I think. It's not that big a deal to think of her as being there. But it's like, I
think she's going to be the head of NASA.
In 10 years, you think so?
When we come back. Yeah, because... That's what it seemed like. That was Margot kind of handing off the baton.
The room is yours. So. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So. And what a good ending for Molly too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sad to see that, but it was like that's totally Molly Cobb. She's like blind and still saving people.
I'm going back in for other people. Yep. No,
she comes in to save Ed, and then when the bomb goes off, her first thought is, "I'm gonna get out as many people as I can."
A true hero by any sense of the word. So,
and they renamed Johnson Space Center after her, which is awesome too.
Yeah.
So
I like the show. It's funny. It did have some weird things, and it got very melodramatic. This season, it seems like in particular, and the whole Danny and Karen story and his mopey bullshit.
Third season slump. I'm telling you, next season's going to be awesome.
I think the biggest thing they did incorrectly, in my opinion, was having Danny and Karen have sex. I think that was a stupid idea, and they should have ended it in the second season and never talked about it again. And the one thing they did do that I thought was smart is not have him tell Ed. I think the fact that he never brought it up again after they got rescued out of the rover thing, he never talked about it again. And I thought for a second, it's like, oh, he's finally going to admit it now. But then he said, I fucked up and killed people. And I thought Ed was going to kill him, but he didn't. Ed's got like one expression now. He's like, constipated Kinnaman or whatever. He's like angry. Anyway,
he always just looks sad. I just want to give him a hug. He always looks sad.
Yeah. He's like,
poor Joel.
He's very happy for a second that he survived the landing. He's like, oh, just give me a minute to be happy. God damn it! Now Karen's dead.
Yeah, really. It's like, oh, hey, here, I'm going to kick you in the gut now.
Danielle comes in. I'm going to stand up so I can kick you in the balls repeatedly because this is going to fucking suck. And that's
what. I just saved my kid and my grandkid, and now you're going to. Jesus.
Now my ex-wife is dead. So yeah, I'll never love again, man. So. Anyway, but yeah, that's the show though. It's like, oh, something triumphant happened. Now you're fucked. Because life is messy.
Well, space is not easy, and apparently neither is Earth. So
well, that's the thing. I don't know, because there could have been other deaths on Earth, but I don't know who else they could have killed off that would have made a difference to people in space. You know what I mean? Because it had to be a big death that sort of resonated through the entire show. And resonated into space because Ed and those guys are still staying up on Mars, and I assume that when we come back, there'll be a much bigger colony, and there'll be a whole.
Oh yeah.
Ed'll be the mayor of Freedom Town or whatever it's going to be called.
Of Mars Town.
Of Mars Town, yeah. And they have to get a woman with 3 boobs in there somehow.
Yes, exactly.
Just as an homage, because that's what you do in a show. No.
Well, and the big questions too are how does the relationship with Russia go? But more importantly, how does is there any kind of relationship with North Korea? Because presumably they're going to help Korea Man get home.
Korea Man, nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that guy though. I thought they did a really good job of, in a very short amount of time, kind of humanizing.
Some of it was so like over the top almost. Like I'm sitting there looking at the photo and throwing the cans down. It's like, I don't know. How do we do this in like 2 minutes? And that's probably
right. Exactly. They only had that was all like main titles, so we had to get a lot in a short period of time.
Right.
But I kind of like the fact that they're like, so he's actually the first man on Mars.
Yeah.
So that all this stuff we've been doing, and especially Danny and the Russian guy that were there, having pushed each other and shoved each other out of the way going down the ramp. Yeah. It's like all that was as stupid as people think, and even more so because we'd already been beat and didn't know it.
Yeah. No, that's funny. And I think that brings them together. I think they're going to, I love Lev Gorin. I think he was great. He's also an Americans alumni too, which is interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's a few people on the show that were on the Americans, but yeah, his relationship with Danny is one of my favorites. They've had a good run. The astronaut's name was Lee Young Gil.
Oh yes. Okay. That's right. So he said it enough times.
I had to look it up. But I'm sorry. I couldn't remember either. But yeah, I just, you have to have, I guess, it can't just be a dry tech show and about space, because then people, I understand you have to have it be appealing to as many people as possible. And that's why you have this stuff on the ground, and you have the drama or whatever. And there has to be conflict somehow. The conflict of man versus, space is not enough. You have to have people in conflict, which is the whole Danny thing. But yeah, they should have resolved the Danny thing with him and Karen. He couldn't have been quite so mopey. He could still have a drug problem. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that he did admit finally that it was his fault. I thought that was a good step for him as a character.
Yeah.
And the fact that Ed didn't strangle him, and they instead banished him. I mean, I guess they're not.
That I found interesting. Yeah. It's like there is this like small little capsule that still works, and we're basically gonna banish you, and we'll give you supplies every month, but no drugs.
But they can't. So, what are they gonna do? Kill him? I mean, they can't like execute him or anything.
No, I don't think they would do that.
Because for all of Ed's bluster, he's not a murderer like that.
No,
I love that. By the way, I love the fact that he spoke Korean. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, he's like listening. He's just standing there watching them all try to communicate.
He's like, "Why don't you just talk to the kind of idiots?"
Yeah, although he did call him my little dumpling.
My little dumpling. Well, he's the American trying to be funny. It's like anyway.
Yeah,
but I like.
I thought that was great. He's standing there with his arms crossed basically, and then just starts speaking Korean.
Yeah,
and they're like, "What?" I learned a few things in the war.
I wanted him to say hi, Bob, but he didn't do that.
I know they did that at the beginning of the season, but there are some great places they could have put that in, but maybe they felt it was too much. Although they didn't seem to mind too much melodrama. But again, third season slump. I think next season will be much better, and I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah, so. I am sorry that we're not going to get more Molly Cobb though. I would watch a show about her. Honestly, totally. If they're going to do a spin-off show, I would go back and follow her character because she's like talking about being a barnstormer and all that kind of shit. I would totally watch a Molly Cobb show.
I just like Karen. She's like, that just doesn't surprise me at all.
Wing walking. That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
No. Yeah. She was an amazing character, and I think, she had to leave, I guess, at some point, but. The end of her arc being they named the Space Center after her, that's like kind of just perfect.
Well, so. It's one of the strengths of the show is that even though the melodrama is there and everything, the characters are I feel quite well developed in a lot of ways, and they all get really good arcs. Like Molly, this is you absolutely 100% believe her. Plus, Sonya Walker does a great job acting as a character too. But it's like you totally believe. This is exactly what this character would do. She, like you said, as soon as there's an explosion, it's like, how can I help other people? How can I, and she's not doing it to be a hero. She's doing it because she is a hero and will always be that way. And that's the reason she's blind, because she helps somebody else, right? She's never going to change her character. And and at that moment, you're like, she should have been on Mars with everybody else. It's
absolutely
the fact that she got fucked out of it is not okay. And then now, this is her sort of way to shine.
They give her this gruff exterior, but I like even that conversation with Ed. She's like, "Well, I'm not going to lie to you.
It sucks."
And she's like, "I like that. It's a good thing you're old and don't have a career ahead of you because it's not looking good." But then she's like, "Be safe, my friend." Right? And so it's like, so when you first meet her, you think she's just this bitch and that she doesn't care about anything or anybody, but she does. and then, on top of that, we meet her with her husband, Wayne, who's like the best character on the show. I miss seeing him only once this year. Yeah. So it's just well-developed characters and well-written so that when they do leave the show, you really feel that impact. Yeah. So even Karen, like you said, she started out as an astronaut wife. It's like, here's the rules, here's how we do things, and look where she ended up. And, so it's even more tragic when she dies. And, you feel that being, having watched the show. I think even if you just watched it this year, you'd still get a sense of this character's come a long way. Mm-hmm. And that was not cool. But, but obviously, we'll get a whole bunch of new characters next season.
We will. Maybe some more Russian characters. Who knows?
Yeah, and maybe more Korean characters too.
Oh, so. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I would say, as sort of the end of our discussion right now for the show for a while, I would say that the Dev character was probably the biggest sort of waste this season. I don't think he was more of a caricature. I mean, no offense to Eddie Gathegi, he's a great actor, I think, but he didn't have a lot to work with, I don't think. And
no, that's true.
It's just like, oh, we need a crazy whatever, because he vacillated back and forth. He was like, he started off as his idealist, and he's like, now he's doing this, and then he's like all about then the whole idea that the company needs money. But I will say, I really enjoyed the sort of background character who's like, yeah, man, but you're rich.
Like, yeah, exactly. You don't have to worry about that.
I love your ideals, bro. But and it's funny that you think to see it's like they're all like all for this whole team approach. Like, oh, but we're not going to get as much money. Well, fuck that.
Yeah, we're not going to get paid.
I can't start over again.
We're not going to keep our stocks. Are you crazy? We're not.
We worked our asses off for those things. We're not going to fucking leave now. Yeah. I mean, what does that say about humans, right? It doesn't say much about us, but
sure. Well, I mean, though, it's like. Yes, idealism is great.
That's what would happen. Yeah,
you can't like eat on idealism.
You can if you're an idealistic billionaire, though.
Oh yes, exactly.
And I'm not sure that's the way to run a company either. Just everybody gather around. Let's make a decision. No.
Yeah, everybody bring it in. Yeah. We're going to talk about.
It's a great idea, but in theory, but you can't. It's not going to work.
No.
Anyway, but yeah, I feel like he was sort of not necessarily a wasted opportunity, but. It's like we need a bad guy. We need like a weird sort of
Elon Musk.
We need an Elon Musk. Yeah, we basically need that. And Although I would say that I like Dev a lot more than Elon. But
oh yeah, absolutely. I think Dev is, when he comes down to it, is actually a decent guy.
You know what? He's trying to do something. He's like, it's like
Yes.
Steve Jobs. It's like he really had a vision for things, and it was very singular. And it was hard to convince him otherwise. He never, like Jobs, never cared about money necessarily. He cared about perfection, quality, or whatever. So that was a good idea as a concept for a character, but I don't think it was as well executed. And I feel bad that But he could come back, right? I mean, Karen.
Oh yeah, no, that doesn't have to be the last we've seen him.
He can't be replaced by Karen now. So,
but maybe he
maybe her death will change him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, the things she was saying to him towards the end there, and then her death, maybe it'll be like, you know what, maybe she, I want to honor that, because I think he actually liked Karen. Because I think she was a good opposite to him and kept things going and kind of was a check for him. So I think he liked that and needed that, and I think I think he'll realize that she was right in a lot of ways, and I want to honor that. So hopefully, or he's never going to be on the show again. Who knows? But I don't think you have that character like that. This isn't a show that just throws away characters like that, I guess. So
no, he'll be back, and he's younger, and he can go a lot longer than But I don't think they'll ever get rid of Joel Kinnaman. I think they'll just keep Ed forever.
Apparently not Margot either. So.
Well, Margot could still be on the show. I mean, she could just live in Russia.
Exactly.
But but you know what? It's okay to sort of hand it over to the younger cast. I think there's no reason why you can't have Cynthia Wu be. Kelly Baldwin can still be on there. I don't know that she can still be 25 years old, but that's fine. But yeah, you could totally bring in new cast members, like you said, and keep going. Why not? Although it's, as far as we know, it's only got one more season, right? I don't know if it's gotten another one. So. After that,
it's been renewed it gets renewed every year, and if it keeps going, Danny's got a kid that is going to be 10 the next season. So the season after that, they could be an astronaut. So
Well, that's right. Yeah, what happened?
Continuing the Stevens line.
I can't remember. Did Jimmy get blown up, or did he survive?
He survived.
Oh, he survived. Yeah.
Well,
no, that's right.
That's right, because he found Karen.
Yeah. But there's no first responders, nothing. It's like, oh, there's a lady buried here, but let's just watch her die. It's okay.
Let's not say
let's not try to help her or anything. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, let's just that was a little bit. I'm okay if Jimmy isn't on the show anymore. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. If you want to get rid of Danny, you just take him supplies in the beginning of the next season, and there's just a skeleton in there. It's like, oh no, he's dead. Bummer. There was a leak.
There wasn't enough.
There was a leak.
There was a leak.
Oopsie.
Yeah. That's true. You could.
He's gone. There's a hole, there's a hole where he used to be. He collapsed in there. But no, it's 10 years ahead. Danny's going to be head of NASA.
Well, I didn't think he was going to be there for 10 years. They weren't going to get a rescue for
a year and a half.
A year. Yeah, a year and a half. So.
Yeah, he still lives on Mars though. I don't think he's ever going to go back home.
He's just like, no, I'm going to stay here.
I'm cool. Yeah,
I'm going to do my penance and keep the colony going and help and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So, do you want to talk about Sandman? No, I'm kidding. Do you want to discuss Sandman a little bit?
We can. I feel like that's going to be a pretty long discussion.
Well, we could try to rein it in for now. And just say, because I think you're right. I think it would bear maybe a longer discussion down the road, next week or the week after, whatever. But as someone who, as I had said before, never read the comics, I don't think 100% sure, but I think that I was skeptical in the first episode. I'm like, this is weird, and I'm not sure I can get into it, and so I had to stop the first time. But then I went back, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch it now, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. So I don't know what my problem was. I just think I was in the wrong headspace the first time I tried to watch it. But yeah, it was much like other things. You if you don't go back to it, I guess you'll never know what you missed. But I went back and started watching it, and I dug it. So it was fun.
It's funny you say that, because we were just talking about For All Mankind, and it took me a couple tries to actually get into that one too. I watched the first episode and I was like, I'm not sure about this. And I went back. However, we're now talking about Sandman. So
yes, come on, man.
I, unlike you, I had I had read the comic when it was first published, and I bought each issue every month Sometimes it took longer than a month to come out, but I distinctly remember the first issue coming out, and there wasn't any internet or anything at the time, but I know it was advertised in a bunch of comics leading up to it, and there was talk in the comic book store I went to, and I was like, I think I'll check this out. And the cover was very distinctive, different than the dynamic superhero comic book covers that were prevalent at the time. And I was like, wow, this is just the artwork was different. The story was different. It's like, wow, this is just something different. And I immediately in the comic got into the story and wanted to know what happened next. And then found out for 74 more issues. And I loved it. And this is before Neil Gaiman was quote unquote Neil Gaiman. Mm. And I was like, who is this guy? And so, he was one that I went and found some of his work in comics before then, found out he was a journalist and he wrote a book about Duran Duran and interviewed Douglas Adams for a book and stuff. It was like, wow, that's kind of weird. But, from that moment forward, he was someone whose career I followed. I know there was talk over the years, and he talks about it too, that people are like, oh, we want to turn this into a movie and stuff. And I was like, much like Game of Thrones, I was like, there's no way you could do this story justice in a 2-hour movie or even like a trilogy of movies. There's just no way. Yeah. And the same thing with Game of Thrones. And it was like, it's got to be like a TV series, but especially, in the 90s and stuff, it's like who would do a TV series in a way that would do the story justice? Because there was a lot of, as you saw in the show, there's a lot of pretty, serious elements that probably wouldn't work or get watered down on network television.
Like 50% of the show would be cut.
Yeah, exactly. So then finally it was like, Good Omens did really well. Yeah. Everybody wants to be in the Neil Gaiman business. We're going to do this for Netflix. And, I was like, well, it's kind of apprehensive. Also, as a side note, Sandman was a point of, that was the one thing when my wife and I met that we were both instantly connected with each other on, because she had read Sandman. That was like the only comic book she's ever read. Mm. And I was a huge fan of it, and I've read it multiple times over the years. So that was one of the big things we connected on. So it's a very personally important thing in my life, obviously, too. And so we were both kind of apprehensive about, well, how are they going to do a TV show? How's this really going to be done? I know everyone likes to throw out, unfilmable. I don't think that's true of anything, but difficult to film, sure. So I'll say this. So we had another series that we had a couple episodes left to watch. So the Friday that Sandman came out, we're like, well, let's finish up this series. We'll watch the last 2 episodes of that, and then we'll watch an episode of Sandman just to see, right? And so then at 1:00 in the morning, we finished episode 5, and it's like, okay, we got to go to sleep. Yeah. We'll finish this up over the weekend. And then we did. The next day, it was like, is it time to watch Sandman? And we finished it up. And all of that is to say, to give you the history and my frame of mind, I loved it. The show was just amazing. They had, it's interesting because there are a couple things like Lyta and Hector Hall have in the comic have direct connections to the superhero universe.
Well, yeah, Lyta is Wonder Woman's daughter, right, or something.
Yeah. And Hector is he actually is Sandman for a while, the superhero Sandman in the comics, as well as a different character. So I was like. And Martian Manhunter and even Superman at one point show up in Sandman. I'm like, how are they going to do that?
No, they're not. Yeah.
And they pulled all that out, obviously, but it still worked.
I didn't feel like there was really any connections to the DCU except maybe Constantine. No. But by the way, while we're on the subject, there absolutely needs to be a Joanna Constantine show.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
In fact, I'm not the only one who said that. You said the same thing, and apparently lots of people are asking for it because Jenna Coleman, does a great job in this show. The funny thing is, I really liked Tom Sturridge. I thought he did a great job as Dream, but I really feel like the show, I missed her when she was gone.
Yes.
She had an energy that came to the scenes with him, and I feel like they could do an entire thing of just them being together and her helping him solve problems and whatever. But I really thought that she was terrific. Gwendolyn Christie, of course, as Lucifer. And then let's not forget Kirby Howell-Baptiste as Death. I thought she was terrific as Death too. That whole
and don't sell Boyd Holbrook.
No, I'm shouting out to the characters that really made an impression on me, and because Boyd Holbrook is going to work. That guy is awesome, but I mean, these are people you've hardly ever heard of. I mean, Gwendolyn Christie, you know who that is, obviously, but but Jenna Coleman, excellent as the character and as her counterpart, her ancestor. But I mean, the woman who played Death, I thought was excellent. That whole episode, her empathy for people is just one of my favorite episodes of the whole show. I think was that just them walking around talking to people, and it was really in the feels. It was really excellent.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, everybody was really good in the show. I thought that. And the whole episode with David Thewlis in the diner, all those, like, where do they find these super great actors? It's like just this one day or this one part, just for this whole thing, and then they never are seen from or heard from again. I thought it was super interesting to watch all that, and it was so well done. But yeah, it was one of those things where I was pleasantly surprised, like, oh, this is way better than I thought it was going to be, because I had, like you said, people think, oh, it's unfilmable or whatever, and I the more I think about it, the more I must have read it at some point. I just can't remember, because it all felt really familiar as I was watching it, and I was also like, oh, well, that's that. I remember that being different. Like Lucien was a dude, I think, in the comics, if I remember.
Yes.
But and it had more to do, and then I don't think Lucifer was also a male, right? Because that's Lucifer from the Lucifer TV show. It's the same character, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is also why Constantine was in that show. Okay, that all makes sense now. But I was just like, everything is getting more and more interesting, and it's just it was really terrific, and I hope they do another season. I think it's just wonderful.
I'll say this, knowing, I know it sounds weird saying knowing fictional characters, but having just known all these characters for the last 30 years or whatever, because I've reread it, and they've done, side stories and prequels and all, and just really knowing these characters well, they did across the board just absolutely perfect casting. It's like a perfect storm. I mean, there was no performance. First of all, there was no weak performance in the show, period. But second of all, I didn't feel anybody wasn't playing that character, whether they were a different gender or different ethnicity. They just, that was the character. It's like, man, I would say, I know everyone's saying it, but it is the best, literature to live action adaptation ever. It's just dead on. And I was also surprised by the number of things that are pointers to stuff that's going to happen later. Yeah. But it didn't feel like, oh, well, here at this point we've got to do this because we want to pay that off later. It didn't feel forced. It was all part of the story. And then I'm like, well, I know what that's going to happen later, but man, the way they incorporated that was excellent. And more, I don't know. I could keep going on about it, but even the voice of Morpheus, it's pretty much how I heard his voice in my head. Yeah. No, he was the way it was lettered and everything in the comics. It's just,
he's so emo.
Yeah. Like, there's a difference between goth and emo. They're not the same.
I know.
But anyway,
I'm just kidding. It's funny you say that, because we're talking about the characters, and like some of the characters just show up and whatever. Like if I were creating a show, or if I'm sure one of the notes that they might have gotten was, why is this guy Hob in the show? What exactly is the point of Dream meeting this guy? But I think it's such an important development for his character. It's like he sees this human who he's sure is like going to get tired of living forever, and then it gives him that really good insight into humanity, and makes him much more sympathetic to humans, because his main experience in the real world with humans is being in a cage, right? So it's like, how can you like humans at some point? So, and also the whole idea that Death brings up to him is that they live, to serve humanity, not the other way around, which I thought was interesting. So he gets a lot of development, I think, in this show, and you really can understand why he does what he does, and then he changes and gives Lucien more authority and just becomes a different person. And they talk about that a little bit during the show, but it's like his captivity was the best thing that could have happened to him, it seems like. So
but I think you're right, because the whole sequence with Hobb could have easily been like, well, that's superfluous. We don't really need to have that.
That's what I mean. It's like, what's the point of it? Yeah, it's like the character doesn't really do... It was
hugely important
anything.
because that was my favorite issue of the comic. But the point of it was, the last time he saw Hobb called him friend, and he's like, how dare you? I'm above you. I'm not like that. And then he misses the next meeting, and because of everything he's been through, he's like, I actually missed... I actually am this guy's friend. This is why I've been doing this. So that's what, his line when he shows up, I hear it's rude to keep one's friends waiting. It was just like, that's when Morpheus, the Sandman, becomes, it's like, okay, that's where he becomes a character. Basically, he is through the rest of the series. Right. So he's like, yeah,
well, that's what I mean. I get it now. Exactly. It's a linch.
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
I loved
it's a linchpin, a transformative moment for Morpheus. And it just, but that's something I could see people just having notes like, why is that even in here? Because he doesn't really do anything. He's just a guy who lives forever and whatever. But no, it's very important. Just like Morpheus being with Death, and Death actually being compassionate, which I thought was an interesting. It's like she cares about humans and easing them. They just need a friendly face, when they're easing into.
And she's so positive and happy. Yeah. It was like, wow, that was.
Well, I just love her. I love the actress too. She was. I'm gonna Kirby Howell Baptiste. I'm gonna say that name again. She is
amazing.
She was terrific. Yeah. And of course Jenna Coleman I also enjoyed as well. But
even the voice acting, Patton Oswalt as Matthew the Raven, and I don't know if anybody realized it, but Merv Pumpkinhead is Mark Hamill, which is great.
You can even if you don't really know, it's like, oh, that sounds so familiar, and then it's like, oh, it's Mark Hamill. Yeah. But
the Cain and Abel thing, they kept that like in the comics, which I thought was great. Cain just perpetually killing Abel, and he's like, no, it's okay. It's just okay. My brother.
It's his nature. And the whole it made you care about a gargoyle. It's like really It's like the gargoyle's on the screen for 10 minutes, but you're like, oh. What a dramatic sacrifice! It's like, come on, man. That's well done.
Another token of Morpheus's evolution is he gets another gargoyle egg and gives it to him.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So, exactly.
It's like, I understand what I'm taking away from you, but here's the gift. And so you get the impression that before captivity or in the past, he would have just been like, this gargoyle is mine. It's my dream. I'm taking it away. Too bad, right?
Exactly.
I don't know. I definitely hope they get to tell the whole story now with this series.
I think it's going to get into the season for sure. It's super popular, but
it's number one on Netflix in like 80 countries. So I think we'll get a second.
It's really well done. It's really well done. I want Unity to be my grandma too.
Oh yeah, she was awesome.
What a great great sort of thing for that to pay off too. It's like, who's this? Why are they showing this random person? It's like, oh, well, that's why. And she was just the insight into that. It's like, I slept a long time and now I'm going to have a life and all this other stuff. You said, was there any sort of weak characters? I didn't. I don't know, the Patton Oswalt thing. I like Patton Oswalt, but that was sort of not my favorite thing. I didn't love that. I would have liked a less distinctive voice maybe as the Raven, as Matthew, but funny, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just, I don't know. Anyway, that it's not a dig on the show. It's just that wasn't my favorite part, and I don't think that the actress who played Rose was the strongest of all the actresses either. I thought she was not as strong. And also, nothing against Lyta either, but I would say her performance wasn't as good as some of the other ones either. But I think, well, the funny thing about Rose is she kind of went in and out for me. It's like, at some scenes she was strong, and then some scenes I felt she was a little bit weaker. But the kid who played Jed I thought was terrific too. But anyway, but this,
yeah, especially in his dreams, I am Sandman.
I'm the Sandman. Yeah, he was cool.
The only I thought they did a great job and they inhabited the characters. The only part that really kind of that was weird for me was Lyta, because that actress reminds me so much of the actress Jamie Murray, and I kept in my head, I kept trying to go see that actress instead of the one who played Lyda, and it was kind of jarring and weird to me.
I thought they cast her because she looks a little bit like Gal Gadot. So,
oh yeah, well but
no,
she looks a lot like Jamie Murray, and it was just kind of, it took me out of it every time she was on screen for a little bit, because I'm like, why is Jamie Murray acting so weird? And why does she look different? It's like, yeah, because it is someone else. It's not her. So it was kind of weird for me, but
yeah. She looked like, an Amazonian. She looked like the dark hair. She looked like Diana Prince to me, which is, I suppose, was part of the deal. But I thought she kind of looked like Gal Gadot a little bit too. But because she's supposed to be, Lyda Hall is Wonder Woman's daughter, right? So it's like she kind of looked like Wonder Woman a little bit. And so,
well, there you go.
In Earth 2, I guess, if you want to believe, if you go with that kind of thing. But I don't know as much about DC folklore or history. I'm not going to dig back into Golden Age comics necessarily to figure out.
Well, sometimes people are descendants of characters, and sometimes they're not, depending on which reboot of the DC universe you're talking about.
Right, so. Exactly. Good old Boyd Holbrook.
It's kind of weird.
You always think that. I thought that Boyd Holbrook was. Excuse me, I don't mean to yawn. I thought that he was Hal Holbrook's son, but apparently he's not. So there you go.
But he just he knocked it out of the park as a Corinthian.
Yeah.
And see, that's another great character, because he wasn't an evil character. He was created to be like that in people's dreams, and he was suddenly in the real world, and like he said at the end, he's like, I just did what you made me to do.
Right.
I was just doing what I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa. But the whole serial convention, there's no way, if that was all on ABC, that'd have been cut. There's no way.
Well, especially all the don't leave the kid alone with that guy.
Yes.
Stuff. He's mine.
Yeah.
I want to play with him and all that creepy shit. Yeah, that would have been toned down for sure.
But
it was still disturbing. No, it was just.
It was very disturbing.
They would have toned down all the sexuality and all the sort of whatever. It's just everyone has to be straight white male. In this show, if it was on television,
yes.
But no,
this
is the only way you could have done it on something like Netflix or HBO,
absolutely,
or whatever. It's the only way you could have done it, and be faithful to the, as faithful as they were. There were some changes, right? There was some gender swapping and some other things like that. But by the way,
there was some.
Charles Dance is always a terrible father, apparently, in every show.
He is, yes. He never plays a decent father. Someday
he will get
Someday there's going to be an episode where he's like the greatest dad ever.
Yeah, but not in this one, definitely.
No. And there were some story points that were swapped around and things like that. Yeah. But I think it worked. I know people hate to hear it, but if you take something from literature and translate it to a movie or a TV series, things are going to change because the narrative flow is different,
right?
Depending on the medium. So there are going to be changes, and I totally get that. That's why I don't think there's such thing as something being unfilmable. It's like, well, it is going to be different. It isn't going to be like having the comic book. Although I got to say, Speed Racer did a great job of putting the cartoon in live action. But anyway, I digress. I haven't long. We can talk about that.
I'm not sure anybody but those two could have done that, though, because that was just like my appreciation for that movie has grown over the years. It's just such a great adaptation of a show like that it's so perfect almost. It's like almost too good. I don't think anybody else really. Honestly, I say that, Ed, it was just terrific. And this is a really good adaptation of literary stuff. But yeah, like you said, you have to change some things. I am curious though, because when I first heard about this, it was going to be Terry Gilliam a long time ago was going to do the movie.
Yes.
And I can't help but thinking what that would look like, but it would definitely be weird. But
I think if you're going to do a movie, it would have to be probably Terry Gilliam or maybe even Tim Burton, because I think it kind of feeds into his sensibilities a little bit too.
Except Johnny Depp would be in it, and everybody would be palely white faced, and it's like
that's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
Anyway,
but yeah, it's the Sandman series is everything I could have hoped it would be for the source material and more. And I don't doubt that we'll see at least another season, but I really hope that they get 4 or 5 seasons so they can tell the whole story. It's only 75 issues, and they told the first 2 storylines in the first season. So realistically, if they keep with the same kind of dynamic, they could go 5 seasons and tell the whole story. Yeah. So I hope that they either have a ironclad contract with Netflix, or they have the ability to take it to another streamer if Netflix does as they want to do and cancel things after a couple years for no reason. But so that gives me a little bit of concern that it's on Netflix, but.
Well, and Netflix is also having financial problems apparently too. So
right.
But I think that it'll have a few years. At least it's on HBO Max, so that's good.
It's interesting what you said about in your intro to it, though, because I've had at least 2 people just where I work reach out to me because they knew I had mentioned being excited to see it, and they had reached out to me this week saying, "Yeah, I watched Sandman," and both of them were like, I'd never read the comics. I wasn't even really aware of it until people started talking about this, but I decided to watch a show and absolutely loved it. And even better, both of them were like, I now want to go get the comics and read it and see the full story. And I said, they didn't really leave a whole lot out, but I think it would be cool for you to see where it comes from. But yeah, they're like, yeah, now I want to read the comics. So I think that's cool.
I have it. I have them here. I think I can even turn my head and see them if I wanted to, but they're on my shelf.
There you go.
I have the trades,
there you go.
which I'm going to go back and read probably now, but it's just, I actually, in a way, I kind of think I'm glad that I didn't necessarily remember it, because it came to me sort of fresh, right? And so I was able to experience it as like Game of Thrones. I go back to that too. I'm glad I had read more than the first book of Game of Thrones. I kind of wanted maybe there's an audio version. What they should do is just get the cast to do an audio version of all the books. I think that'd be interesting. So,
well, it's interesting you say that because Sandman has an audio version, full cast audio version they've been doing. With a completely different cast that is also very popular.
Yeah.
And honestly, they nailed it with a lot of the casting there as well. So, yeah, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches, as the old phrase is, for Sandman fans right now.
Indeed. So, yeah, well, I think we can revisit this again later. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about it quite a bit. It's just a terrific show. If you haven't watched it, you definitely should, whether you're a fan of the comics or not. And I don't think you have to be necessarily
not at all.
Deeply rooted into the comics, because they do a really good job, I think, a really good job of making it accessible to anyone who has never seen it or read it. And it can stand on its own. And I think you said the same thing. Like, you don't have to know anything really. And there's really no ties to the DCU except for maybe Constantine. Or whatever, but
it's kind of,
but that's okay. It's not like, thank God they didn't try to make Superman show up or any kind of weird characters from the DCU. Like Flash comes through. I'm sorry, Flash ends up at the serial convention. Oddly enough, no, that's terrible.
Because he's like, I need to eat. I
got hungry all the time. Oh, this is not a serial convention, but what a clever way to do that, by the way. So. There was a lot of clever stuff, I thought. But
collectors,
yeah. But I still will tell you that my favorite parts were when he was walking around with Death doing her thing, but also the stuff in the diner. Freaking David Thewlis, man, that guy was terrific. And
he's an outstanding.
He killed it, man, literally. I just want the truth. But everyone in that whole episode, like, you never see them again, but they're like. All excellent.
They were amazing.
And in 5 minutes, they develop these characters so well, and it's just a textbook of how to do that in an efficient and terrific man. I keep saying terrific in an efficient and effective way.
Yes.
If you want to know anything about developing characters for TV, you should watch that episode. So,
absolutely, yes.
Anyway,
anywho,
what are you going to pick this week? Let's do picks.
I'm going to pick Sandman. Sorry, I'm going to go for the easy one.
The easy win.
But I'm going to pick the Sandman comics.
Oh, okay. How about that, you cheater? I'm just kidding.
Yes, you were going to pick it too, weren't you?
No, that's fine. I don't have to. I don't care.
We can have a same pick.
You're not the boss of me.
Okay. There are times where we can agree on the same thing.
I think we agreed on the same thing last week too.
Maybe.
Didn't we both pick Thor: Love and Thunder last week? We're just copping out. I'm a cop out. No, I'm going to pick a book this week. So
okay.
So your pick is The Sandman. My pick
I'm going to pick Sandman,
right,
and
so
I already went through my reasons for that. So
my pick is a book. So
okay.
I've been baking and I've been cooking a lot more lately. But one of the things that I'm trying to, you know, master is sourdough, as many people were doing during the pandemic. I kind of came late to
Yes.
the idea. But anyway, my pick this week is a book called Tartine Bread, written by a guy named Chad Robertson. He basically is a guy who, if you ask people who is the best any baker that you meet at a bakery who trying to make sourdough, this is the book that they read that got them into bread. This guy spent years going to Europe and and building a brick oven in his side of his house in California, in Northern California, baking bread all day long for years, trying to perfect his recipe for the best sourdough loaf ever.
Nice.
And then he wrote this book, which is basically the sort of de facto guidebook of how to make sourdough. And it's if you've never had his bread, it's fucking amazing. I was able to have some when I was in Los Angeles last time, because they have one of their bakeries. They were in San Francisco, but they also have an LA location in LA, and they ship across the country. But it's just it's an amazing thing to make if you do it correctly, and even if you kind of fuck it up, it's still really amazing. And I never knew. Because it's like three things: it's flour and water and salt, and that's it. And you get this amazing sort of thing that comes out of it. It's so much fun, and I love the precision of it, and I love the sort of quest for perfection, which you can never really reach. But it's a great exercise, and it's not even expensive. I mean, flour is not super expensive. I mean, the most expensive part of it was getting the what do we call it? The cooker, the bakery thing. It's a Dutch oven, but it's like a baking Dutch oven. Which allows you to bake sourdough bread in your oven at home, because your oven doesn't have steam at home, which is one of the things that helps it rise properly and give the crust and everything. Anyway, this is probably too much about sourdough, but anyway,
not at all.
My pick is Tartine Bread, written by Chad Robertson. It's an amazing book. If you want to know how to make bread and you want to know how to make the best sourdough that's ever existed, probably, or one of the best, then that's the book for you. So anyway,
you learning to make bread has inspired me, because we like to make pizza at home, but we buy the dough. Basically our local grocery store has a whole section that's like their dough and sauce and all this stuff, and we get that and make pizza at home. But you've inspired me, because now I want to make my own pizza dough and my own pizza sauce. So that's what I'm doing this weekend, in fact.
What I made the other day was my own pasta.
Nice.
I made the flour volcano with some eggs, and I just made pasta. It was a lot easier than you think. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It was my favorite expression that chefs have told me over the years that I've seen. It's like, it was very rustic, because that means it's not perfect, right? So, but I mixed it together on the counter, and you get the eggs going, you get the thing going in the volcano, and you make your own pasta dough, and you just like cut it with a pizza cutter and as sort of straight lines as I can, and it was good. I mean, it was pretty funny, and you can actually get egg pasta at the store, but it was sort of fun to make it your own damn self. But yeah, I don't know what it is about sourdough. And there's actually a sourdough bakery that just opened near us. So I've been going over there and sort of picking the head baker's brain. She's been very kind to help me with figuring out a couple things. So anyway. But yeah, it's fun. Cool. I'm glad you're doing that. That's fun. And I kind of, during the height of the pandemic and lockdown, people were like, "Oh, I got my sourdough and this." I'm like, "Why are people baking? I don't quite understand." I like bread.
I know. I didn't. Yeah.
I didn't jump on it. I guess I'm not a trend follower, but now, because of cooking and because of just being interested in, in the process of things, and just the more I learn and getting to experience this bread when I was in LA, and it's just it's just become a thing, and I like it a lot. So anyway, it's fun.
Well, and I'm back to like brewing mead, which I'm really enjoying experimenting with that. But then I was like, I could make my own pizza dough and pizza sauce. Even that's easy to make. Well, not easy, but I can make my own and make it the way I want.
You absolutely can. I mean, pizza sauce is pretty easy. It's pretty basic. It can be, and the dough is not super complicated either. Do you have a stand mixer, or are you going to do it by hand?
I may try to do it by hand, but we do have a KitchenAid or whatever.
That's the one that everybody gets. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have one.
my wife has had one of those for years, so I'll probably use that.
I
But
had one, and
yeah,
then it went somewhere else, and then we got another one because it was a gift, and so a lot of this.
right.
It turns out we have a lot more things to use in the kitchen than I thought, so that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
So, but it's not
and
it's
it's
not
like it's a, like I said, we enjoyed making our pizzas at home because we can make them exactly the way they want,
yeah.
and I think I'll enjoy it even more. It's like I made it. It was kind of like when I made my first batches of beer. It's like popping open a bottle of beer and drinking it. It's like, this is good, and I made this. It's just something, I don't
Exactly.
know, something satisfying about
It
that.
is.
So
It's, and I understand now because I have friends in the restaurant business, as I'm sure you do. And over the years, like we just like serving people. We just like taking care of people.
right,
And I kind of thought, well, that's sort of cynical in a way because I was more cynical maybe. But now it's really very satisfying to make some food that your family enjoys. But also, like last night, I made myself like a simple sort of egg omelet kind of thing with stuff I had left over, and I'm like, wow, this is
yeah,
really good. It's just I just made it
yeah,
up on the spot, and it was like really tasty, and I made it myself, so it's kind of fun. Anyway,
yeah. So
we're still going to do an episode about food, I guess, but
we should do a food podcast
we
too.
should do it. We should, and maybe that's a good idea.
We could.
And about making beer. We always talked about beer. In fact, we used to talk
Beer
about
and
the
mead,
beer
yeah.
we were drinking. But now that we record the show in the mornings, there's not as much drinking involved.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
So, anyway,
that
so
you know of.
that you know of, yeah. Find the Flickcast at Spotify, at Apple Podcasts, and all the other places you find podcasts. Joe and I are on the socials at What Joe Writes, and I'm at Chris Yu, and also Ulrich Picks on Instagram, and the Flickcast, of course, is at the Flickcast. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us pretty much everywhere,
Yes,
anywhere, and everywhere that you'll be inundated with.
we are all in your internets.
We're all up in your
Yes,
internet. So, anything else, Joe?
I think that's probably it.
All right, cool. So for Joel Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.